GMGAGE, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are back for another episode of Cup of Joe with Web3 Joe. That's Web3 Job, Ops, and Events, your hub, headquarters, and home base for all things Web3 talent and recruitment. They power these spaces. They're sitting in the main host seat currently, if you want to show them some love. We're here every Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, doing our best to fill this next 30-40 minutes with as much value as possible. We do so by bringing on legends from the space who have succeeded professionally and are succeeding professionally to talk a little bit about how you can land your dream job in Web3. So shout out to the people already in here. Iceman, I see you. Diggy, I see you. Anyone listening to the recording, whether that's here on X, on Spotify, or YouTube, we appreciate you. Once again, shout out to Web3 Job Ops for powering these spaces. And of course, shout out to our honorable guest of the day, none other than Miss Lena. She's the marketing and partnerships lead over at Legion, and I'm sure she's got a ton of insights to share. Miss Lena, how are you doing? Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm sure you have a ton on your plate, so really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to stop by. Once again, shout out to our listeners. If you want to show some love, share the space out. We appreciate it. And let's go ahead and get into the conversation. Lena, I did my best to give an intro, but for the people who may be less familiar, could you let us know a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you got started doing it?
Sure. So, I essentially have been in marketing the last 10 plus years. I actually started in luxury fashion, working at some of fashion's most notorious houses, including Christian Louboutin, known for the red bottoms, Louis Vuitton, and so forth. Shifted over to tech after I graduated from uni in New York City. And then got a job at Facebook for a few years where I was granted the opportunity to travel all over the country whilst kicking off my phone just like went out. Kicking off my consulting agency that evolved into Zeitgeist, my marketing agency that focused on gaming events and so forth last cycle. So basically, I got started in crypto in 2020. Doge was my onboarding vehicle, actually. And I happened to be the marketing manager for the first NFT project on Solana called Creatures. So I was very early to Solana. And since it was kind of just like a domino effect of project after project, working with some of the biggest in the space from Game 7 to NFL rivals to a variety of different ecosystems like Solana, Story, and so forth. And then 2 years ago, I was granted the opportunity to build out Solana's New York City community. And it was originally the Solana New York City Alliance, but we hated the name, so we evolved it into offline to get founders and builders offline. So after a number of years, we've hosted 50 plus events around the world to parties, panels, mixers, workouts, etc. I'm a yoga teacher on the side as well. We've grown out our community to 8,500 plus people. And in addition to that, I am now the marketing and partnerships lead over at Legion. So what that entails is managing our marketing team, ensuring things get done, executing from a strategy perspective, being a liaison with all of our partners that want to work with us from a marketing perspective, and kind of just like growing the pie across the board to help the next iteration of projects get funding through ICOs and so forth in crypto. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Hope that helps.
No, it helps a ton. That's quite the path you've had. I can relate to Doge being your onboarding to the space. That was my first experience with crypto as well. So shout out to all the hodlers out there. But yeah, no, super interesting path. I appreciate you giving us some insight there. What are some of your favorite milestones when you look back on your time in crypto that you've been able to accomplish since getting started professionally in the space?
Yeah, it's tough because there's just been so many amazing moments. Also, transparently with crypto, there's also, moments where the industry shits the bed, but we're kind of like used to it at this point. But from that perspective, I would say, even the first opportunity of growing the Solana community out in New York from zero when it was $30 was really exciting for me. I think that kind of just like was the first milestone that kind of was an aggregate moment of all of my past experience that was like, okay, this is kind of like a guiding light in the right direction that is pushing me where I need to be. So since it's helped me catapult the industry from an IRL perspective, the ecosystem's doubled down on events, 10x since, and since also it's just become obviously a leader in the space from a blockchain perspective. So from that point, it was that for sure, just being granted the opportunity. But I can't really say another moment as well, just because like every event that I host after has been just such a reward to be done, like put together an event, put 50 to 100 hours behind every event that I put on, whether they're 200-person events, 10-person events, or 500-person events, and then seeing them through to the end and like finally being done, and then getting back on the treadmill to do another one, and then another one, and then another one. Sometimes at conferences we do 4 events. you know every one, it has been rewarding, so I can't like reduce it down to one particular moment, but it's just been ever it's just been fruitful in many directions, to say the least. So
Yeah, well said. And again, congratulations on everything you've been able to accomplish. I do help out on the events side for Web3 Job Ops and for Mexico, and I know a little bit about what it takes to put together these constant, year-round, global events, and it's a lot. And it's a lot. So shout out to you and all the teams you've been able to contribute to along the way. For folks listening, as you consider like your path up to this point, what advice would you give for folks who are looking to break into the Web3 space in terms of like how to actually get the conversation started with a potential employer?
So, for those that are just getting started, I would say working in any industry is a cumulative experience. It's not just like a one and done type role. Even 4 or 5 years later, since I've entered, 5 years, it's been 2021. So, 5 years since I've entered the space, like that's pretty phenomenal to get to where I am from when I first started. Other industries can't really compare, simply just because even let's say more older school backgrounds or industries such as like finance, doctors, etc. It requires skin in the game, many years of experience, getting your master's, etc. Working in a corporate office for 10, 15 plus years. And that alone takes a lot of grit, time, energy, relationship building. Um, so what the beauty of crypto is that everyone is accessible everywhere at all points in a million different directions. And so you can shoot someone a DM, and like the fact that, myself starting 5 years ago and where I am today just goes to show that like anyone can make it if you just like put the right foot forward, you prioritize the right things, you obviously stay on the good side, which obviously there's a negative side of every industry, but also crypto and so forth. So the one piece of advice I would say is doubling down on IRL events. I think that was the hidden alpha that really granted us the opportunity to get skin in the game early on, especially now during bear markets. When things are bearish, that's where the most upside is. And so for me in particular, having the opportunity to attend as many conferences as I have over like a 2-3 year period helped me establish myself and my name and my roots across the board, where people knew me not only by my first name, but how I looked, like how I presented myself, what rooms I showed up in, and so forth. And if it's just about consistency and providing value. Like there's difference between, you know, showing up and eating the food and like just saying hi and like kind of just being a value extract versus being a value add. And so providing value, what does that look like? Well, offering your insights to people for free, even if you don't have that like piece of info, like that reputable experience in the beginning. Transparently, I had 7 internships when I first started out. I worked a ton for free. I like knew I had to survive in New York to get off my like feet, and so I put as much time and effort into making that happen. And I think that translated to my success because I got an early head start. I was interning at as many places as I did at the age of 19. And for that reason, I'm probably a few years ahead of all of my peers now for that reason. So it's really about doubling down on your time. Obviously, no one wants to work for free. So maybe just like offering, even if it's just short term stints of like 3-month internships, or giving your time out from like of just like providing value for its value-based tasks, whether that looks like one-off admin thing or for like a project-based thing or and so forth. It's just about skin in the game. So hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. we try to do a theme of the week every show we do, and today's theme is contributing to communities. We usually touch on this later in the show, but I think now's a good time to jump into it a little bit. Uh, what are some of the ways that have stood out to you? I imagine you've had people reach out to you in the past. Are there any examples that you have that people have done to get your attention, whether it be a DM or submitting a proposal or adding value, like you said, in some way, shape, or form? Are there any examples that kind of stick out to you when you think back on ways that were effective to get your attention?
It's a good question. I get a ton of inbound all the time, whether it's emails, like cold emails from like, cold automated bots and so forth that are trying to like have me work with them and so forth, or LinkedIn messages or XDMs. Um, I would say the best way to get in is a referral through a warm network that someone already has. Like that typically is like a really efficient way to get just like a referral, because obviously if I get a referral from someone I trust, that means they're putting their judgment on the line and like referring that person forward. Something that stood out previously for an agency that we were going to work with, but we didn't end up working with, was they basically put together a video content strategy, basically assessing all of our data and being like, okay, here's like where you guys aren't hitting the mark, and here's like where we can provide value. And that alone like was really helpful because it helped us see our blind spots. Now, why we didn't work with them was because the quality of the content wasn't to the level that I wanted. So it's just about making sure if you're going to present a strategy, like it needs to be at the level that you're pitching like your company to. Otherwise, you're not gonna close the deal, right? So the strategy was there. However, the execution, the creative was not. So it's just be mindful of that, because you could also spend tens of hours on something like that too, right? So, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, well said. Appreciate the insights there. What about when it comes time for the interview? I know obviously in crypto and even outside of crypto, these kind of conversations can have a range from more informal to more formal, especially in crypto. But when it comes to preparing for that initial conversation, whether it's on the phone or video or maybe in person, how can folks make sure that they go in prepared to properly give evidence and illustrate the value that they have to offer?
Yeah. So, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, like how do folks make sure they're prepared when they go in for that first call, that first interview?
So, when you enter the first interview, depending on the company and the size and the scope, essentially that is like the less that you come in there and it's your proof of work that you've done the homework on the company, right? So from that perspective, when you're interviewing at a company, like anyone can you can I probably for any role that we post on Legion, for example, I always make sure that the person I'm speaking with, like, I know that they did their due diligence. Because for example, if you didn't, and like let's say you're just like here to just collect the check, which many are, you obviously don't necessarily do the homework behind it. So it's like, for example, who are the founders? When did the company get started? Why does the company exist? Maybe reading their white paper, seeing any like relatable or reputable pieces of long form marketing that just came out in the last month. Like, essentially, you are doing your due diligence on them, because if you show up to an interview and you don't have that figured out, it essentially makes you A, look unprepared, B, makes you not look like the right fit, and C, makes your job interviewer realize, hey, like maybe it's time to like move on and like find someone who like is more passionate about this company. Because like, for example, at Legion, we were interviewing someone who had probably like 30,000 followers, who was a great obvious candidate for the role, for this content lead role that we had previously. And she crushed it on social. But when I asked her, hey, like, so what do you like about Legion? Like, what drew you to the company? Blah, blah, blah. It was clear as day. She did not do the homework. She like didn't even remember the job description. It was just clear as day. Like, it was a weird interview. So just make sure you do the homework at the very least, and always, always, always come prepared with questions, because that shows that you are passionate about the company, you care about the company, and you also are interviewing them, because essentially if you are tying yourself to a company, you want to make sure that you are going to be happy. And if you're not happy with the company, then obviously that will affect how you feel long term, right? So A, make sure you do your due diligence. B, come with questions. And I would say don't go overboard with questions. Maybe leave the last 5 minutes for questions. Even if you have 5 minutes left and you only cover 2 questions, that's fine. So.
And then, on that same note, do you have any questions that either you like to ask when you're interviewing, or that maybe you've found value in being asked from people you've interviewed?
Um, Questions I ask or they ask me?
Either one, just like some question, maybe one or two questions that you think are good to keep in your back pocket for general interviews.
I think it depends on the stage of the interview. The first interviews with like the first person you interview with is different than the last interview with the founders. You have to think of it methodically, based on the person you're speaking with. So like, for example, if you're looking for a role from a marketing perspective, and you're being hired from a social media manager, let's just say a social media manager, the question the first interview you have will probably be with their marketing lead or the person you report to. It's more so of a vibe check, right? And so that person's going to try to figure out, like, has this person audited our accounts? Has this person looked at our social accounts? Has this person looked at our long form accounts? Like, have they seen what's worked and what's not? And I'm going to ask them, hey, have you done like, if you looking at our accounts now, like, what would you change? And if you don't have an answer for that, which they can probably read through, like, then it just goes to show, hey, you didn't do your homework. Back to square one. Number 2 is a question more about culture fit, company fit. Is this the right fit for me? How do you like working at the company? Like, what's your favorite part about working at the company? It's more of a vibe check. Now, if you're in the second interview, last interview, or like, let's say you're speaking with the founders, that is more of a high level vibe around figuring out what makes the most sense from a like manifesto perspective. Like, where does the company stand, and so forth. And so like figuring out what the plan is. Hey, what would success look like in the future? What would success look like 90 days, 30, 60, 90 days from now? Like, what's in line for me there from a goal perspective? What are the expectations there? And second, like, how can I know, let's say that reputation is important for you as the marketing lead over at Legion. How can I translate that better into our content if I'm like the social media manager, if I'm speaking to the founder? So, yeah.
Really thorough response, and I appreciate you kind of touching on the nuances between different levels of interview and what you want to be considering when you go into those conversations. How about do's and don'ts of a resume and or portfolio?
So, good question. It all depends on the type of role, right? I only speak with marketing people, so I'm only going to speak to that. Um, so resume is obviously a piece of paper. It goes to show like who you are and so forth. However, the proof of work is deeper than that. It's like your GitHub if you're a developer. It's your LinkedIn if you are a marketing person. It's your X account. It's the website. It's your portfolio pieces. And so the best candidates. I mean, I wouldn't say like there's candidates that just get by and like just submit their resume, and then there's the candidates that stick out and show in you can tell they have initiative, they care about their digital footprint, they obviously want to put their best foot forward, and all of that counts. And so having a website is key, especially in my personal opinion, because it makes the standout people stand out even more. Let's say you don't have a website, let's say you have 30,000 followers, then like obviously your social account is kind of like your portfolio, right, for many. But I think the more the more you have, the better. For me, I've spent a ton of time on my LinkedIn, and oftentimes in crypto, like people don't think about LinkedIn because like it's very X focused. If you're looking for a more institutional job or skin in the game from like a more, you know, let's just say Safu, whatever company and so forth, then like LinkedIn is the better path in my opinion. And so before I was native to X, I mean, I was native to X for many years, but I didn't really care about it that much. I was spending way more time on LinkedIn, and the Web3 audience on LinkedIn is way different than the X audience, the crypto audience on X, right? So it's about striking that balance and hitting both. And so if you're a social media manager and you're applying for a CT lead role, obviously the CT lead role, people are only going to look at X, like your X account, right? If you have a portfolio, then obviously having a website is great because then you can show like your best pieces there, or Notion, because Notion is free, a great resource if you want to do that instead. But LinkedIn on the other side, if you're applying for a more generalist role, like a marketing lead role, a marketing lead role, or a social media manager, which is more vague. Like let's say you're looking for they're looking for someone who does LinkedIn, TikTok, all that fun stuff, X. Then they're going to look at, okay, what's this person's digital footprint across the board? So caring about that. Number 3 would also be like being mindful of your digital footprint and knowing what and what not to say. A lot of people can crush it from like a social media posting perspective and like have, amazing engagement. However, in terms of their reputation, like they can say ruthless things on the internet and think things will not come back to bite them. And for me, the reason why I've gotten to where I am today is because I've been very mindful of what not to say. Because when you do say things, whether it's criticizing ecosystems, criticizing people, saying what's wrong, flooding projects, talking that poorly about anything, and so forth, people remember you for that. And every single hire that we bring on to Legion, we are very strategic about, simply because they are an extension of the brand, right? So whenever you work for any company, you have to remember that you are an extension of the company. And if you are, sending emails to people about things that shouldn't be said, like cursing them out, even though you don't think, like, for example, I had an ex-employee curse someone out on via email because they sent an email to their spam inbox that they thought they unsubscribed to, but I guess it's like illegal to do that, to like unsubscribe and you're still getting emails. And he like cursed them out, and I'm like, hey, you are representing my company. You cannot be like saying this in writing on the internet, because essentially that will come back to me and people will say, hey, this is you. This represents you as your company. So being mindful of that. And then also, last but not least, just, yeah, continuously posting. I know it's tedious to do it every day, but pushing out something goes to show you care and you are putting in the time and the effort, even if you don't have the best engagement. So
I love that end advice there, to just post even if you don't have engagement, especially with the nowadays with the algorithms, they change so quickly. I mean, you got to just kind of keep your head down, keep posting, keep experimenting, and coming from you to say that there's still value there, even if you don't have the most engagement, I think that goes a long way. Also, on your note of like, be careful and be cognizant of what you post. Like, it reminds me of the quote, what is it? Say it, forget it, write it, regret it. Now, not to say that you should be out here saying all kinds of crazy stuff, and just because you don't write it, it's okay. But it's more permanent if you write it, right? So these are things to consider. Um, on the LinkedIn, what would you say to someone listening right now who is interested in getting more involved professionally in Web3, but they're not on LinkedIn yet?
if they're not on LinkedIn yet, totally fine. Better late than never. My 2 cents is, yeah, best to get started. Fill out as much information as you can. Fill out your about section as much as you can. Have a high res headshot. If you don't have a high res headshot, that's okay. Utilize AI to like make you have a better headshot. There's like a bunch of tools now where you can do it for free. And it looks like a high res headshot. Create a cover photo that best represents you. Maybe it's like the projects you've been involved in with, etc. Maybe it's your parent company. Let's say you have a marketing consultancy on the side or a dev agency on the side. And then fill out all of your roles as best as possible that you've had previously in order. So literally your LinkedIn is just an expanded version of your resume. And so if you go to my LinkedIn, for example, I don't know if you can link it here, but I've filled out as much information as I possibly could over the years, from providing what I did from a bullet point perspective, each role since the very beginning. And that has helped paint a clear picture of my work experience, because when a recruiter or someone who is hiring for a job looks for certain people through their back-end recruiter database, because I come from the recruiter side and I know what they look for, the first thing they look for is how much industry experience does this person have. And so automatically they can select, okay, we're looking for candidates for this role with over 8 years of experience. And so if you don't have experience that goes back 8 years, you're automatically like they're not going to reach out to you, period. So for that reason, providing as much color as possible to the LinkedIn roles as possible, saying, hey, here's one sentence on each role or each company. Let's say they don't know what it is, and then here's what I did, roles and responsibilities, bullet by bullet, is key. Also providing links there to your external links. So for example, I link it to I have a personal website, I have an agency website. I've gone a little overboard, but it's fine. And then getting testimonials from people that you've worked with and having them like put in recommendations for you over the years, another great example. So providing as much paint color as possible, whether it's, those testimonials, filling out each one of your job roles, as well as, last but not least, filling out the skills. And I think you can honestly like fill out as many skills as you want. So like, let's say you're a developer looking for developer jobs, you can provide as many different like dev languages you might know, like Rust, etc. So I can help provide paint color to that as well. So
Great tips. Great tips to consider right off the rip, especially the recommendations. I feel like that's one that people sleep on a lot. And you can collect one solid testimonial from every team that you work at. That's going to really add up and go a long way to highlighting your value down the road, right? I mean, testimonials they go so far. And then if you can get them from folks, in executive higher positions, even better. Amazing. We are just about ready to start winding down. I'm going to get to our closing questions now. I have 3 of them. And the first one is, what are your favorite and least favorite parts of working in crypto?
We'll start with my favorite. My favorite is the complexity of the issues at large. Obviously, crypto kind of is a big has many different angles of interest for the industry, and we're still haven't resolved the top use cases from a consumer perspective. I think that there's so much unknown in terms of like what is stickiest is like great, because that means there's a ton of upside. So from that perspective, that has been really exciting. I think the amount of really interesting experimental projects that have come out of the space are awesome too, such as Zora. Obviously a ton of different creator-based projects on Solana, etc. And also more so the people. Like I came because I stumbled into crypto because I thought it was exciting, it was innovative, it was fresh. But I stayed more so for the people. Over the years, I've just found that like everyone that I've met has just been like, I guess like more not spiritually aligned, but like aspirationally aligned in like pushing the industry forward towards the centralization and finding alternative paths towards privacy and like as the normal system breaks down of like capitalism and so forth in front of us because of AI. So that's been really exciting. I would say my least favorite part is obviously like the bad natured people or the negative people who have been more so value extract, as mentioned earlier, simply just because that is what has historically brought the industry down. Um, and then in addition to that, just like, the cyclicality of the industry as well, in terms of just like things can be going great and then afterward, like it could, shit the bed, as mentioned. So you can't control it.
Yeah, the volatility is definitely worth noting. We were at 120K. It feels like almost just yesterday. Now we're at 67. So, I mean, that goes to speak to, like, make sure that you're considerate about the teams you join, right? And the longevity and what you need out of those teams and whether or not they can survive through these kind of volatile ups and downs that are just absolutely part of crypto, at least for now. Perfect. Next question. We've covered a lot. You've given so much insights in the last 30 minutes, Lena. If you had some top of mind final thoughts to leave the people with in terms of getting hired in Web3 or advancing their careers in the space, what would you say?
Again, it's a relationship-based industry, as many industries are. So focusing and doubling down on just like volume. For me, I've focused on volume over the years, and obviously the quality of people have risen to the top over time. And so for that reason, even if you just meet as many people as possible in the beginning, people remember your name, face, and how you provided value to them, even if it was many years prior. And for that reason, like, it's a very much favor-based industry where, you know, one favor goes, people remember that long term, and providing that value is key. And the second thing that we didn't really cover was like how to make your resume stick out. Coming from the recruiter resume side of things, because I worked for a staffing agency that had hundreds of thousands of followers on LinkedIn. They had 10 different companies. They worked with Facebook, Apple, not really crypto, but a lot of Web2 native companies. Is when creating your resume, consider creating an applicant tracking system first resume. Another way of saying it is ATS, which is a acronym that people in the recruitment space often say. So as a homework assignment for those that are listening, check out ATS, like how to create an ATS or ATS ready resume online is key, simply because applicant tracking system is a tool that recruiters use when you automatically submit your resume online to, let's say, a big company like Coinbase or Kraken, or, you know, big institutional companies with hundreds of employers, etc. And what that does is let's say 200 people submit their resumes online through this applicant tracking system software. It automatically will sift through the resumes with AI and say, okay, these are the top 20 that you should consider. So if you don't have an applicant tracking system resume that fits that, like what it's looking for from a template perspective, from a language perspective, from a format perspective, you'll automatically be rejected. Like, even if you're an amazing candidate. So look for that. And then also there's free applicant tracking system ready to go resumes online, like from a template perspective you can use. So just make sure you're utilizing that.
Wow, that's big. 39 shows in. This is the first I'm hearing of applicant tracking first resumes. So that's super valuable. I'm going to do my best to update my resume, make sure that it's in sync to that. It sounds like SEO. I mean, it sounds like SEO, but for resumes, which makes total sense. I mean, businesses like Coinbase don't have all day to go through all the whoever knows how many resumes they get. So that's huge. If you're listening, hopefully you took note of that. Applicant tracking first resumes, prioritize it, optimize, and move forward from there. Beautiful. One more question for you, Lena. After all this value that you have dropped on us, we want to make sure that we show love back. So can you please let us know how we can support you and the awesome things you're doing over at Legion?
Yeah, I mean, so Legion, we focus very much on the quality of projects that we put out versus the quantity. We speak with, you know, dozens of projects a week. However, we're focusing more on our Legion premium sales, and for that reason, we're focusing on the biggest and the best in the space in the months to come. So for that reason, make sure to shoot Legion a follow, sign up for an investor, and stay up to date with all of our content there. And then if you're ever at any of the conferences, make sure to attend offline events and so forth. We typically have happy hours and educational panels with top tier Solana professionals, as well as other ecosystems as well. So we did 4 events at Breakpoint. So happy to pay it forward and provide value to anyone listening. So
Amazing. Well, if you feel like you got value out of these last 30, 35 minutes, which I'm sure you did, make sure to shoot Lena a follow. Make sure to check out the cool stuff that Legion is building as well. I got twins tweets pinned up top to both Legion and Lena's account. For those listening online, that's Lena, Lena Grundhofer at LenaGrundhofer on X. Please make sure to show love. And without any more delays, Lena, thank you so much for stopping by. You've dropped so much insights. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
not this time. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. But yeah, hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Amazing. Thank you again, Lena, and thank you all for stopping by. This has been Cup of Joe, episode 39. Make sure to show love to Web3 Joe as well. And without further ado, we'll see you next time. Everybody have a great rest of your day.